everyone, my name is Jessie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a video on books that are not necessarily my favorite books, but contain things that are like my favorite things inside of books. So basically, if you take all of these books and put them together, that is like my most perfect book. This is my perfect reading taste list, if you will. I don't know if that made sense at all, but I saw this video going around, and if I find who did the original video that inspired this, I will link them down below. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll link it down below if I can find their video. But it really inspired me, so let's talk about some books that have my just like favorite things ever. The first book is actually like one of my favorite books of all time, and it's Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I think the reason that I loved this book so much and why it just continues to be one of my favorites is because, one, it's morally gray characters, and morally gray characters, if you have a character who, I don't know whether I like them, whether I hate them, whether they're good, whether they're bad, if you have that kind of character in your novel, I'm almost always going to enjoy it because I love characters like that. So this novel does that so well. So that's the first part of it that I think just sold me on this whole idea. And then the second part of this is it's like superheroes. And I love Marvel. I love like all of those comic book movies. I want to read more comic books. So the idea that like this is morally gray superheroes, all the better. Like, I love that. And they're not necessarily superheroes, but they're people with these extraordinary powers that kind of make them either like super villains or maybe sometimes a superhero. I love this. It definitely has a lot of the things that I love in novels, and I think that's why I just love this book so much. The next book is not one of my top favorites, but it's definitely one of my favorite like more young adult fantasy books, and that is Mistborn, Starting with the Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And I think the reason it makes this like perfect reading taste list is because in my fantasy books, I love hard magic systems where there's definitely a consequence to using the magic that's present in the world, and you have like rules and very complex ways you can use the magic. Like, I just love complex, hard magic systems, and Brandon Sanderson does it so well in this Mistborn trilogy. So that's the one thing. And then the world building. The world building in this world is so incredible, and you're not dumped with like just paragraphs and paragraphs of exposition and just world building. It's woven through the story so beautifully, where it's still exciting to read about, and you're still learning so much about the world, but it's not like all the book is, if you know what I mean. Like, some books are just like paragraphs and paragraphs of description. That's not what this is, but it just does it in such an awesome way. And then it also just has a kick-ass main female character who I love. And in some ways I can like relate to her because she feels very like awkward and quiet and introverted, and that is how I am. I'm very introverted and quiet in like group situations. So I just loved seeing her dynamic with like this motley crew of characters. I loved the whole character dynamics in this book, the relationships between the characters. So this had so many things that I just love in my books, and I think that's why it has to make this list. Moving to a totally different tone, another book is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Again, not one of my top favorite books, but definitely an incredible one that I gave 5 stars to. This one I think I loved so much because, one, it's set in Alaska, and I've realized that the setting, when it takes place in our world, but it takes place in a place like Alaska, it's almost like the setting becomes a character on its own. And it's like not only the people and the plot and everything that's kind of creating conflict, it's also the setting of the book that's creating conflict. And I loved that idea explored in this book, and how Alaska was like fighting back against these characters. I loved it. So that was one thing that I really loved in this novel. But the other thing, it's number 2, and this is just, I don't know what that says about me. I love hard-hitting, emotional family dramas. I love complex, messed up family dynamics. I don't know why. I just find it so emotional, and it is so intriguing to me, and I just love reading about it. I don't know why. We Are Water by Wally Lamb is another one that reminds me of just like really messed up family dynamics that I just loved so much. But this one is so hard-hitting, and I cried a lot, and that, if a book can make me cry, it's pretty good. It's doing its job. If it's trying to be like this very emotional read. So I love this one. I really, really love this book. And this isn't even my favorite from Kristen Hanna. I probably prefer The Nightingale, but it just in terms of like my reading taste, I think this has more in it that I would normally be more attracted to, because I'm not normally attracted to historical fiction like The Nightingale is. The Nightingale is just exceptional because it's an exceptional book, not necessarily because it's historical fiction. But this one, it just totally is everything I love in a book. Another one I have that is more of a recent discovery of stuff I love in books is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a sci-fi thriller, and I didn't know this about myself. I freaking love sci-fi thrillers. I love when we talk about concepts that aren't so fantasy, where it's like totally make-believe and magic, but it's something that could actually occur in the world we live in now. I love taking an idea like that and just expanding upon it and making it like in a thriller kind of genre setting, and just having your mind blown by some of these concepts. This book does it incredibly. The Punch Escrow by Tal M. Klein does it incredibly. And then also A Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray does it exceptionally. So like these kinds of books, I realize I really love. So if you have more sci-fi thrillers, I am going to read Recursion by Blake Crouch this year. But if you have more ideas of sci-fi thrillers for me, let me know that, because apparently I love them. They are always so much fun for me to read, always. Another one that this is so many things that I love in a book, and it's Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I'm sure everyone's heard of this book. I think why I love it so much is, one, we have kids in it, and I love when an adult book, not necessarily like a middle grade or a young adult book, but when an adult book has children characters in it and explores children's perceptions and emotions from an adult perspective. I really like that. Like I love It by Stephen King because of that. I love Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky because of that. But I also like Big Little Lies because of that. So I love the kids dynamic in this book. And then I love the drama. I love the whole mommy drama. I realize like at this age, I'm starting to relate more to this kind of book than I am to young adult kind of books, even though I'm not a mother yet. I'm planning on becoming a mother, so this is just really fun to read, like mommy drama and school drama. Like all this stuff is just really fun and addicting, and even though it's like more of a guilty pleasure, I don't feel guilty about reading it, but I guess you could call it like a guilty pleasure. I love these kinds of books. Another one that does like mommy drama really well is Bad Mommy by Taryn Fisher. That's another one that comes to mind. So I love these kinds of books, and I just love when they're not thrillers per se, but they have these twists and turns that make them more thrilling. So I wouldn't classify this as a thriller, but it's definitely more thrilling than just your average contemporary or like women's fiction chick lit kind of book. So love Big Little Lies. 3 more. Gonna get through them really quick because I feel like this this video is pretty long. Next one is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Vernon Greenwood. So this is a little bit awkward to talk about because this is a very controversial book. I understand that, but I think that's why I love it. So this book is about a very controversial topic, about an older man falling in love with a younger girl, and some people hate it because of that, and so understandable. I totally get it. But what I love about this book and these kinds of books that take these taboo topics is they really make you reassess your own opinions and judgments and make it very compelling to take a step back and reevaluate things that you normally would be very much against. I love when a book can make you think like that and do it in such a way and with such characters that make it so real and so emotional and like draw you in so much. I don't know. So I'm kind of weird like that, where I really like controversial books and I like what they do and what they make you think about and how they make you challenge your own thinking and your own beliefs. I don't know. I love it. So if you hate it, oh my God, I totally understand why. But if you also love it, maybe you're like me and you like more like controversial books. Another one that I still need to reread because I haven't read this in a really long time, but I remember loving it, and that's Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is not necessarily one of my favorite books. Just like I said, a couple of these other ones aren't necessarily my favorites, but when I read this book, I loved tropes like the chosen one and the villain that makes you question whether you should be bad or not. So like I loved the Darkling in this book. Like I love villains like that really make you sympathize and almost like root for the villain in certain ways, but they're very clearly bad. Like I don't know how Leigh Bardugo did it, where I just love the Darkling and his character and how he's so manipulative, but he's so fascinating. So love villains like that. If you can make a villain that I can like somehow like get behind and root for, or just at least like love to hate, that kind of villain. Love when they have memorable villains. So I think that's why I love Shadow and Bone so much, because it had that memorable villain that you just love to hate. And then the other reason is because I love the chosen one trope, and I love Illuminae in this book because of that. I personally don't get tired of the chosen one. I think it was done really well in this book. I loved the powers that we explored and the world building that Leigh Bardugo weaved in. I thought it was all really well done. So I personally really like this, and I still need to reread it. I haven't read it in years. So I wonder if I would still love it as much now if I read it, but at the time it was exactly what I was looking for and exactly what I loved, and those were the reasons why I loved it. Last one. Okay, again, not one of my absolute favorites, but definitely up there and got 5 stars from me. This is Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. Similar to Dark Matter, where this is a sci-fi thriller, and it is so sci-fi. Like this is way more sci-fi, I think, than Dark Matter is, because Dark Matter took place on our world. This takes place in space, on spaceships, and is basically about this like corrupt company that comes after this spaceship, and the spaceship ends up having this plague breakout on the spaceship, and it's just stuff goes down. This is so good. So one, it's sci-fi thriller, which we've already established I love, but the other element of this book that I realize I absolutely love in books is artificial intelligence that gets its own personality and character. I love like personified artificial intelligence. I love that. When we have smart AI who are smart characters and very witty and just help move the plot forward. I love AI in books. Another book that does this very well is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. We all know that the Thunderhead is this AI that kind of controls that world. So those kinds of books that have that element in them, I absolutely love. So if you have any other recommendations for books with either, sci-fi thrillers, which we already established, but with smart AI that get their own character, leave those comments down below, because I love books that have that. So those are the books that I think each of them have like little pieces of what I love in books. And if you could put all those pieces together, you'd get a really weird book, but one that I'd probably love. What are some of the things that you love in books? Did anything I mentioned really resonate with you that you also love? And is there anything I'm not talking about that comes to mind when this kind of discussion takes place? Like, what do you love in a good book? I'd love to know. So leave your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And until next time, bye.